Hi there, Davey Cretin here, and this is the debut episode of a new series I'm going to do on the channel called Concert Memories. I've been to a lot of shows over the last 4 decades, and I've seen some cool shows. And this first show I'm going to highlight and talk about is one of my favorite concerts of all time, and it's also one of the most unique I've ever seen. I'm talking, and I have some of the information here. I looked it up. June 23rd, 1992, the Beacon Theater in Manhattan. I saw, promoting their second official album, Break Like the Wind, I saw Spinal Tap live at the Beacon Theater. And this was a great show. They played 24 songs, 2 sets, and they played for over 2 hours. They played about 2 hours and 10 minutes, not including the intermission, because I'm such a wacky cat, I used to time shows. The same year, I saw Black Sabbath with Dio on vocals at the Beacon Theater. They were also great, but they only played an hour and 45 minutes. And I remember I would tell everyone, I saw Spinal Tap, and they played almost a half hour longer than Black Sabbath. But, of course, this is parody rock, but they were great. They all played their instruments, they're musicians, they're actors, they're comedians. This was a great show. They did 9 out of 11 songs from the debut album. This is Spinal Tap, the one with the black cover, the movie soundtrack from 1984. The only 2 songs they did not do Cups and Cakes, which is that great 60s parody pastiche, and they didn't do Give Me Some Money, which is also a really cool song. They didn't do those 2. From Break Like the Wind, they did every song except for Diva Fever. So they did 13 out of 14 songs. And little did we know it back then, but they did 2 songs from what would be their 3rd album in 2009, Back from the Dead. They did Celtic Blues and they did Short and Sweet at the show that I saw. So let me get up the track listing here. And then I got backstage. So I want to talk about my backstage experience after. So the first set, they opened up with Tonight I'm Gonna Rock You, great opening song. Cash on Delivery, really good hard rock song. Hellhole, one of my classic favorite songs by Spinal Tap. They did America. Then from the new album, at the time, Break Like the Wind, they did The Majesty of Rock. And I love that pompous little fast progressive keyboard run in it. Love that part. Heavy Duty was excellent. Then they did, from Break Like the Wind, they did the duet with Cher, Just Begin Again. But the thing is, if you were watching Conan O'Brien in the 90s, he always did that throwback to the 60s with the clutch cargo lips. Well, they had a face on the screen, on the screens at the Beacon Theater, and they had Cher's face, and they had the clutch cargo lips, and they had Cher's voice. She wasn't there, piped in. So she was singing the duet with David St. Hubbins, a.k.a. Michael McKean. And that was a highlight of the show because it was just so ridiculous. Then they followed it up with Sex Farm. Then The Sun Never Sweats from Break Like the Wind. Stinking Up the Great Outdoors, which is that funny song with those little stinking up the great outdoors. Woo! Like that part's funny. And they closed the first set with Stonehenge. And of course, they brought out the little people. They brought out the miniature Stonehenge. Great way to end the first set. Second set began with Rock and Roll Creation. Then they went into one of the singles from Break Like the Wind, Bitch School, pardon my French, but that's the name of the song. They did the classic ode to the 60s, Listen to the Flower People, which was hysterical. From the new album at the time, Rainy Day Sun. Then they did the unreleased Celtic Blues, whichever way you want to say it. They did that eerie song that sort of reminds me of Black Sabbath's Planet Caravan. They did Clam Caravan. Then they did, from the debut album, All the Way Home, which was great. And I'm gonna cry, 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 all the way home, like that old skiffle type song, early Beatles sound. They did the title track of Break Like the Wind. Then they did Springtime. Then one of my favorite Christmas songs of all time, Christmas with the Devil. They did the unreleased song Short and Sweet. Of course, to almost close the second set, they did Big Bottom, which was great with everyone playing bass on stage. and Viv on the bass synthesizer. Then they did the unlisted track on Break Like the Wind, Now Leaving on track 13, and that was the end of the show. Now, a good friend of mine worked for MCA Records because the second album, Break Like the Wind, was on MCA Records, and I know on tons of channels, all the contrarian type channels I've been on, Peter Kerr's Rock Daydream Nation and Tim Derling's Tim's Vinyl Confessions, I always bring up the fact that we called MCA back in the day in the music stores the Music Cemetery of America, Musical Cemetery of America. But they released this Spinal Tap album. They toured for it. They played these select dates, and I was lucky enough to see them at the Beacon Theater in Manhattan, which is a beautiful place to see a show. I've seen a lot of shows there. It's an old, majestic theater, really good sound, wonderful place to see a show. I think it's about 74th and Broadway in Manhattan, if memory serves. So I got from my friend at the record company, I'm not going to name him because I'm still friendly with him. He probably doesn't want me to say his name, from MCA Records, and delete name there. He got me backstage passes to the show. So I was with my buddy Joe. He and I worked at this record store, Titus Oaks, together. We get backstage, and it wasn't really backstage. It was actually in the lobby of the Beacon Theater between, I guess it's the bar right by the front door and where they sell all the souvenirs, CDs, posters, shirts, yada, yada, yada. So I don't remember if the poster I brought, if I bought it there or if I brought one from the store, but I brought a poster and I had the three guys sign the poster, the three principal guys. It was great. There were a lot of people in the lobby. There were at least 100, 150 people. It was a big, quote unquote, backstage event. And the three guys came out, Michael McKeon, Harry Shearer, Christopher Guest. Harry Shearer was the only one in costume. He still had his wig on. He has the mutton chops. And he was wearing a kimono, which was great. He wore a kimono, and he was in character. But Christopher Guest wasn't in character. Michael McKean wasn't in character. And I was getting Christopher Guest's signature when all of a sudden this very tall, attractive woman, and I remember, because she was so striking in a green dress, Jamie Lee Curtis pushed by me, and Christopher Guest went to grab her. They must have had some kind of disagreement, and she was going out the front door of the Beacon Theater, and he was going after her. So he just signed my autograph last, and then he followed her out the front door. But it was great because the guys were engaging. They were talkative. Joe and I was saying, oh, it was such a good show. You guys played longer than most real bands. And they said, we are a real band. And they were that night. And it was a great show. Nice meeting them and seeing just Harry Shearer in that kimono. What a character. So this is one of my favorite concerts of all time, and I just wanted to start off the series with a bit of a bang. And I don't think many people saw this tour. I'd have to look it up and see how many dates they did, but it's not like everyone going to see the Rolling Stones or any other big bands of the day. This was Spinal Tap, and it was a great night, and they are a real band. And I'm also looking forward to this year, 2025. They're doing a sequel. Now, it's 41 years later. So, I don't know. I'm hoping for the best, fingers crossed, that it's really good. But can you really make a sequel 41 years later? That remains to be seen. Maybe I'll do a movie review when it comes out. And I'm sure there'll be a soundtrack, so I'll probably do a soundtrack review too. But this concert was excellent. And I don't even know if there are clips on YouTube. That's something I should look into, and I should have done it before I taped. But that is this concert memory, seeing Spinal Tap, June 23rd of 1992. I think it was the 23rd. Let me just turn my phone on and look it up. Yes, June 23rd, 1992, the Beacon Theater in New York City. So that is it for this episode of Concert Memories. There'll be more in the future. And remember, everyone, to rock out, prog on, and pogo. I'm Davey Cretin for Cretin Classics. Did anyone out there see Spinal Tap on the Break Like the Wind tour? Let me know in the comments below. What's your favorite Spinal Tap album or song? What do you think of the movie? Do you think it was genius? Do you think it was heresy? Because a lot of rock stars were a little offended by it because they thought it was a little too on the nose, so to speak. Boink. That's about it. Thanks a lot, everyone. See you soon. Bye-bye.